Welcome to Everything STEAM. I'm your host, Sam Stanford. As a physicist and structural engineer in training with Jacobs Engineering, I've made many connections with some bright individuals who are either working, studying, or self-taught and passionate about our particular topics of discussion. Now, today's topic is a little bit of a mix of things, highlighted by an emerging field in physics called soft matter physics. And just so you don't have to hear me fumble through cookie-cutter definitions, we brought on a guest star that focuses on soft matter research. We'll dive into the basics of soft matter, some interesting applications, and stuff I just don't want to spoil. But to round out the last two segments, our guest and I will talk about the PhD track, as well as the importance of work-life balance, especially in the STEM fields. So without further ado, please meet our guest, Michelle Wang. Michelle is a singer-songwriter that is currently pursuing a PhD in physics while focusing on soft matter research at Emory University. She has been doing research in experimental soft matter physics since her freshman year at the University of San Diego in 2017 and published a first author scientific journal article on soft matter in 2019 with various talks and poster presentations to follow. But besides physics, Michelle puts a lot of work into her music. She started producing singles at the age of 16, but has been writing, singing, and playing music for practically her whole life. Her music identifies as acoustic pop, folk, and R&B. So please take a second and check out some of her music on Spotify. Her music is linked on our website, or just look up Michelle Wang using the Spotify's search tool. So now that you've been introduced to the topic of the show and my good friend Michelle, we're going to head into our first commercial break. But before we do so, I wanted to take another quick second and just promote our newsletter. So the Monday before each episode, we will email you facts about the episode coming and information that wasn't really covered, so bonus content. And then we'll give spoilers to what the following episode will be. But most importantly, we want you to give us a reply email with a question that could possibly be answered by our next or upcoming guest star. So if you want to have your questions answered and stay in tune with the podcast, head to our website under the newsletter tab and sign up today. We look forward to adding you to our community of curious people. And with that, here's our first commercial, and enjoy the show. Okay, that's our signal. So, Michelle, welcome to the show. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm living the dream, except I just came back from Alaska, so I'm still feeling hungover from the trip, but happy to be back in podcasting. I took 17 days off from this. It was very nice. We'll just say.
I'm so jealous.
So, Michelle, you're the right person to be talking to about this. Happy to have you on. And I guess we'll just start out with the really mundane question, for me and for the lay people or I guess me and whoever's listening to this or watching this. What is soft matter physics?
That's a great question. And I haven't heard about the term soft matter physics until I was in, freshman year of college. So I guess not a lot of people are familiar with what soft matter physics and what it entails. But basically, we study squishy stuff. So it has a nickname of squishy physics. And that covers everything from toothpaste, hair gel, your mac and cheese, all the food, to very high-tech stuff, like when it comes to tissue engineering, artificial cartilage, your contact lenses, soft robotics, and even weapon design, but I don't really do that kind of stuff. So it covers a lot of areas. It's literally everywhere. So yes, in short, we study the mechanics of squishy stuff. And people study very different aspects of it as well. So for example, some people work on liquid phase separation interfaces, polymers, so like plastics, rubber, the mechanics of thin film polymer, and hydrogels, for example. That's what I do. So hydrogels are very hydrophilic polymer clusters. Yeah. So basically, if you have a dry bead of polymer and if you're hydrogel, if you put it in water, it will grow very large. So its volume can increase to 2,000%.
Whoa.
Yeah. So it is pretty amazing. And there are a lot that we don't understand about these complex materials because they are viscoelastic. That is
Yeah.
somewhere in between solid and liquid. So
Mhm.
their behavior varies a lot, and people are trying to understand it using different technologies from like different microscopy methods, and rheology too. That is the study of flow of matter. So yeah, it covers a lot of different interesting stuff.
Does this, I know this is probably maybe a really tough question to start out with, and I'm sorry about this, but I'm curious, does some of this matter fall along with more like a chaotic system rather than something that can be replicated? Because I feel like chaos theory really is like intertwined into soft matter physics.
That is a very great question. And so I'm an experimentalist. I don't do any theory work right now, but there are a lot of people in soft matter that actually do nonlinear modeling. So that would fall under the chaos that you just mentioned.
Yeah.
But for nonlinear statistical physics, when you study like flocking motion, for example,
Oh, flocculation?
have
Yeah.
so it have like a group of birds and bacteria, for example, or colloids, and you study their mechanics. And for theory people, they're trying to model their behavior. So for
Mm.
example, that would be where the nonlinearity, is that a word, nonlinearity comes into play.
Non-linearity. Yeah,
Yeah, nonlinearity.
sounds
As
good.
you can see, not a theorist.
Oh, you're good. So there's two things that I want to define really quick for the people. So whenever she talked about viscoelasticity, we're talking about like so soft matter is just anything that deforms heavily whenever there's energy put into the system. Not even where I just touch it and it's squishy and it like moves. It's also like if I were to run an electric field or a magnetic field beside it, something that's electromagnetism will deform these shapes. Thermal, mechanical energy, any type of energy will greatly deform these shapes. And most of the times it's like an elastic behavior, but sometimes it's also inelastic. But like we just call it viscoelasticity instead of viscoinelasticity. That word just doesn't exist and it doesn't sound that great. Viscoelasticity sounds better. But yeah, there was that. And then hydrophilic and hydrophobic, two different things. Hydrophobic is where you hate water. Hydrophilic, you love water. So that's why it sucks it in and it just blows up at 200%. 200? Did you say 200 or 2000? I think it's 2000. Oh, wow. That's okay. That's even better.
They can contain like up to 99% water. That's
Whoa.
how water loving they are. Yeah,
that's crazy.
That's why hydrogels are so applicable when it comes to contact lenses, for example. I don't know if you wear contact lenses, but if they're dry, I mean your eyes are dry too, and you don't you feel weird and all that. We don't want that happening. So
yeah. So these hydrogels, right? I'm trying to imagine, other than contact lenses, how where would you need something that would puff out 2000% its original volume? Like it baffles me.
Yeah.
Maybe it should baffle me.
So there are actually lots of examples of common hydrogels that you might be familiar with. I don't know if you like boba tea.
Yeah.
Like the boba balls, those are tapioca balls. Those are actually hydrogels.
Wow. Okay.
When you boil them, they grow. Right. Not by a little bit. But it's not the part where it grows by a large fraction of its volume that really matters. Is the fact that it has great water retainability. That really matters because it contains a lot of water, right? So when you, for example, if you need like a artificial tissue in your body, then it would be a perfect candidate because it can be designed to be biocompatible to human body condition while maintaining the pH value or I'm blanking right now.
Now you're gonna take your time.
the amount of water that it needs to survive in human body condition, like that also matters. So yeah, it's not the fact that it grows by a lot that really matters. It's the fact that it can be designed to have so many features and, contain a lot of water, and they can also self-heal.
Oh,
So
wow.
break them, and if you design them in certain ways, like there are ways to make them heal themselves when break the bonds. So that's also super applicable.
Okay. So they break apart locally, and then you just add energy to the system, and they could possibly reform. It sounds like random, but if you did add energy enough into like the right orientation, it could definitely do that. That's really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, there are different ways that you can design. A common example will be agar hydrogels. So you can actually eat them. They're derived from seaweed or something, algae,
Oh,
basically. And those hydrogels, once they're formed, they're like jelly or jello-ish texture. And if you break them, however you break them, you just raise the temperature and then cool it down, it will reform again to its original state.
wow. So
So
I have so many, like I have thousands of things racing through my mind right now. And whenever you think about soft matter, you just think it's like these set number of materials. Like it's not like it sounds like it's so more like like there's so much involved here. It's not just like 10 things. It's like the orders maybe billions. Like I don't know.
there are a lot going on. I mean, like,
Yeah.
usually chemists do the designing part, and when it comes to us physicists, we're just trying to understand its mechanics. So
Yeah.
in a lab, I wouldn't have to design a certain type of hydrogel for a certain application, but my job would just be actually study its mechanics in certain conditions.
Okay. Okay. So I'll ask you this because I saw this randomly and maybe you could give a better explanation than I could. So there's some people out there trying to research how they can make energy through using soft matter. Is that something that's scalable? Like, I don't know if that's scalable or not. I'm curious. I really am.
Could you elaborate on like how would they, like, what
Yeah.
their theories?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like I saw like just through my surface level, research of getting ready for this podcast, there was some people that were taking advantage of the mechanical work of soft matter materials and being able to have an energy output. It made me kind of think of like piezoelectrics, but piezoelectrics is something that's, considered coming from like a hard matter material. It's probably a terrible
Yeah.
way to say that, but like, think of like quartz crystals, like when you add mechanical energy by like rubbing them together from friction or just like
Mhm.
compressing it, you get an electrical impulse. I don't know if that's applicable in soft matter. I'm not sure, but like I saw it and I was like trying to make sense of it.
Yeah.
Wasn't clicking. I didn't know if you've ever heard of anything or
That's
not.
super interesting. I've never heard of it actually, but
Yeah.
and I'm kind of surprised because at least from all the soft matter systems that I know of, I wouldn't. Yeah, I can't really. I have to look more into this to know if to have my actual opinions formed.
Yeah.
But that is something kind of surprising to me.
Ooh.
Like, yeah, just because I just can't really imagine how you would harvest energy from a soft matter system. Like, what would you deform the system in some way, or would you like, you
Yeah.
know, um, how would you perturbate? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, how would you perturb the system? So that's my biggest question. Like,
Yeah. I
what kind
think it's nothing scalable. Like if you think about like when we think about energy output, we're thinking about what's powering like the computer right now. I don't think it's that. I think that's more of a nanotechnology kind of a question.
of? Oh, okay.
Yeah. I don't
Okay.
think it has anything to do with like powering homes. I don't think you're gonna build an array
Probably
of
not.
soft matter and then it's
Maybe
just like
maybe ferro fluids can do that.
possibly what so explain what's ferrofluid.
So they're kind of like magnetic. They're really interesting, weird looking fluids. So they move around like fluids. But
Okay.
let me see if I can pull a picture on my phone up the screen. But they're also magnetic.
Okay.
I played around with that when I was in college and accidentally like spill it all over my face, and it was really not fun. So kids, don't do this at home. Not advised. So imagine this. This is an example of ferrofluid.
Whoa.
And they are magnetic and they're fluids, but they look like solids.
Wow,
So
that's pretty cool. Okay, so
yeah,
I just quickly looked it up and it said a ferrofluid is a liquid that is attracted to the poles of a magnet. It is a colloidal liquid made of nanoscale ferromagnetic or ferromagnetic particles suspended in a carrier fluid. So I guess the ferromagnetic particles could be anything that's ferromagnetic on the
yeah.
periodic table, right? It's just
Mhm.
suspended on what type of fluid? Could it just be water? I mean, I don't know.
It says it has colloids. So colloids are basically like big particles. Think of, so a lot of people actually use colloids as models to atoms because they're
Oh,
just basically like micron or nano size beads.
okay.
Yeah. So I think from what it sounds like, I'm not a I'm not an expert when it comes to ferrofluids, but it does sound like it's the colloids that will contribute to the magnetic part of it. So
Okay.
the colloids would be suspended in water or some sort of solvent, though.
Oh, and it's okay. I see. I see now. That
Yeah,
makes sense.
yeah. I worked
Um,
with colloids before. They're fun.
yeah, it looks really interesting. Like a lot of this looks really interesting. So, okay, well, we've talked about like different applications and what constitutes as soft matter, but what do you work on?
That's a great question. And as I mentioned before on hydrogels, I actually study hydrogels.
Okay, perfect.
I had a little example with me today, but the hydrogel
Oh,
that I study, I don't have it with me right now.
aw,
But yeah, it's really sad. But I study hydrogels and their behavior when they're deformed. So that's a very general statement, I know, but their behavior actually is very interesting. So for example, when you compress a hydrogel, when you
mhm,
compress it at a like holding like the size, the gap size, there's a gap when you compress it,
yeah,
holding this gap size the same. Normally you would expect the force to just decay, the normal force to decay, because it's
okay,
a viscoelastic material, right? It's not just
yeah,
gonna, it's going to relax. That's what we call it. It's gonna relax.
gotcha.
Yeah, however, it's this kind of behavior we found from some of our current experiments. We found that evaporation of the environment actually really matters, because as you typically would imagine, when you have a hydrogel, right, it contains water already.
Mm,
So what would affect this behavior? Probably evaporation, but how much does evaporation really matters, right? That kind of question is very important when it comes to applications of hydrogel, to understand how the environment would impact the hydrogel's behavior. Also,
yeah,
friction of hydrogel. So we would measure the friction when we slide the hydrogel.
uh, yeah.
And turns out the hydrogel's compression history would potentially impact hydrogel's friction when sliding.
Oh, yeah, no, that makes sense. That makes sense. You're
Yeah.
adding heat to the system, it's evaporating. And obviously, yeah, and it depends on the environment that you're in. If you're in a
Well,
hotter environment, obviously you're going to get more evaporation.
but even when evaporation is controlled, we
Oh,
also,
yeah.
the compression history matters. So like when we start sliding hydrogels, um, like right when we when we start just like loading them onto a plate versus after we compress them for 15 hours, the
Okay.
behavior can be quite different even when evaporation is controlled. So we are just playing around and trying to figure out what's important. And there are lots of questions that we're trying to answer in my lab when it comes to hydrogels. We're trying to, for example, just trying to investigate the connectivity. Connectivity. Here we go. The connectivity of the network, because after all, hydrogel is, you can think of it as a grid or network that is immersed in a fluid, right? So the connectivity of this network actually impact hydrogel's behavior when they're slided.
Yeah.
So when they're sliding on, an instrument such as the rheometer, sometimes we would observe this pointing effect. And if you're not familiar with what the pointing effect is, it refers to when you're shearing or sliding a material, it expands or contract, normal to the direction of sliding. And that is very surprising. And so in biopolymer gels, people have found before that they contract.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and that is something we would like to explore further in our lab. It has a lot of attraction lately, hydrogel, because there are just so many applications when it comes to hydrogels, and it's very interesting. But there are also a lot of questions that we're trying to ask here, because intuitively you're like, oh, it's just a slab of something, and introductory physics can solve pretty much all the problems, and turns out that's not the case.
No, that's for sure. Classical physics, it feels like everything's more macroscopic than micro. Microscopic still, it's just like we talked about chaos theory, or I just name dropped chaos theory earlier. Like once you start getting really small, things do not behave the way you think they will.
Exactly.
Just because you can't taste, touch, smell something, whatever, doesn't mean it's going to behave the way you think it is. It's extremely tough to do, very tough to do.
Especially when you have a network system when you have a system like hydrogel, it's you have a network with fluid flowing through the network that is not even micron sized. They're nano sized grid network. It's very complex.
Yeah.
Right? You have so much going on. You have different pressures. Is that me? I'm sorry.
I think it was. You're good.
You have different pressure that's going on, and things can get really complicated.
Are any of these materials within the hydrogel now ferrule, where you can pass electromagnetism through it to be able to point it in a certain direction, locally within the fluid? Or is this just almost pure randomness?
So that's very interesting. I haven't really thought about combining ferro fluid and hydrogels together, but I would think you could. So the problem is colloids are usually, they're nanometers in size, or hundreds of nanometers in size. But the pores of hydrogels, you can engineer it, but at least in my experiment, they're 60 nanometers in size. I don't know if they can fit, if they are free to flow around as much. They're cured inside of, a gel. I think that's more of a technical problem. I think theoretically you could design a ferro hydrogel. That would be super cool. If you design the pore size to be large enough for colloids to, flow around. And,
something that caught my eye is just the applications of trying to help people in the health industry with soft matter. I think that's there's the opportunities are really endless. I don't want to even go into the weeds of things, because I feel like we could talk about it for pretty much hours. I mean, you could do that with any of the subjects that we cover in these episodes.
Check back in 50 years when you need a knee replacement or something. I'm sure hydrogels can help.
Michelle's got you. That's what she's saying. She's got you.
If I have a job.
So you're saying that like with all these applications, you feel like the field is expanding and there's more like job opportunities, research opportunities being like put forth.
We'll see how the economy goes. But
That's
I
fair.
mean, I think so. I think they're definitely growing attention when it comes to soft matter physics, because when you do research, when you have background in soft matter physics, usually you gain a lot of other skills. Like for me, I have experience in different microscopy methods, like using different types of microscope,
Yeah.
coding, using rheometer. Those are skills that the industry are looking for, and it matters. It gives you a lot of different job opportunity, even if you don't want to keep doing research in soft matter. But it definitely does have. Okay, my grammar is not working today. It definitely does have a lot of job opportunities surrounding the soft matter physics area.
That's good. So, random, maybe stupid pop culture question, just to get off of all the physicsy material science stuff that we've been talking about. So, you working with microscopy. What's the nicest microscope you've worked with so far? What's the most expensive and nicest one?
Okay, I don't know the price of the microscopes, but
That's when you know it's good.
there are two things I can think of. I think the first one was when I was an undergrad. I was working back in University of San Diego in my lab, and I remember my PI or someone who trained me on the microscope was like, "Don't break this lens." It was this objective lens, because apparently it costs like $8,000 for that one single objective lens. And I'm like, okay, I guess I won't. But I was like shaking the entire time, because before I was like, oh, it's fine. And now I'm just like, it's not fine. And then the second candidate, definitely AFM, atomic force microscope.
Ooh.
So yeah, there's one that I was trained on in one of our labs in our department, but it's not my lab. From what I've heard, you can buy a house with that money. $500,000, I think. So
Okay.
around that range. We also live in Georgia, so I don't know how the housing market is doing right now, but yeah, it's all I know for sure is that you can definitely buy a house with that microscope.
Oh,
So
for sure. For sure.
So I was a little scared. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, for sure. I don't want to make every question be like challenging, your
Yeah.
knowledge on soft matters.
We
Yeah,
also
I'm
home
curious.
build some jungle microscopes. So like there's also that. So it ranges from jungle microscopes to house microscopes.
That's pretty cool. I took an optics class whenever I was studying physics, and that's what we got to do.
Yeah.
We got to build a microscope over the course of a semester for different things that we were trying to see. That was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that. Honestly, if I would have kept going with physics, I think I would have done something optical. I get that's a
I
lot
think
of fun.
you're in Arizona, right? I think at University of Arizona they have a like amazing optics program in like optical science.
Yeah, you know what the problem is with me is that I just find a lot of things fascinating. So it's hard to like pick a somewhere where I want to go for a master's or PhD course. It's been my plague. Yeah, it's hard to deal with. Yeah,
Yeah. Oh my
yeah.
God. Don't even get me started on selecting a school to apply to.
Well, good thing that we're teasing it, because whenever we come back from this segment, we're going to talk about PhD programs. So stick around and find out. Okay, and we're back here for segment two. On we're done with soft matter actually, so you can rest your brain. Your brain doesn't have to hurt anymore. We're done talking about material science and physics and electromagnetism and colloids and scales of size. We're going to talk more about the PhD program track, but I really want to start like at the base level and just ask Michelle why you got into physics, because that's not really a program track that a lot of people think about going into college. It's either you really love physics or like you just kind of fall into it from like a general education course or a general requirement. So what's your story?
My parents actually were really confused at first too. They're like, why did you choose physics? Doesn't make sense. I was like, well, it makes sense to me. It's a long story and it has multiple parts. But it all started when I was 4 or 5. My mom just randomly talked about black holes one day to me, and me as an age, as a normal 4 or 5-year-old, I was like, what is that? That is scary. So I started reading like all the books that with a lot of pictures, like pretty pictures of space.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, this is so cool. But so I wanted to be an astronaut at first. And physics was not really it's not really in my head until so this is don't laugh, okay? This is gonna be really embarrassing. But
no, you're good.
In middle school, middle school rolled around. I was 11, I think, at the time, and I had a huge crush on this boy in my class, and it was really embarrassing because he held my hands like one time, and I was obsessed with him. I was like, I like him so much. Like I want to impress you. And, he just did not entertain that at all. He was not into it. And then from his friend, I knew that he was into physics or sci-fi. And my little 11-year-old brain, I was like, I'm going to study physics to impress him. And so I went and started reading books. I was like, what can I impress him? Quantum. It was too hard for me. It was too hard for me. So I read the first page of Feynman's lecture. I was like, what did I sign myself up? Like, what did I do? And I was like, this is interesting, but I don't understand anything. So I went back. So I started with the very introductory stuff, and I was like, this is fun. In retrospect, I think I was just really desperate. But but the more I looked into physics, the more I was like, this is actually super interesting, and I want to do this long term. And ever since then, I just became really passionate about physics. I took physics in high school. I did IB physics all 2 years. And in college, I started doing research in physics, like literally the first semester of freshman year. And I was like, this is so fun. Like, I enjoy being in lab. I wanted to do astrophysics first because, stars. But then the professor was like, well, you have to take intro physics first, or finishing them. And I was like, I'm not going to wait that long. I'm going to start something like experimental first. And I fell in love with it. So I decided to do a PhD in physics after college because research is something I'm really passionate about. So yeah, that's my story.
That's a different story. I've never heard that one yet. I'm sure it's out there. Not saying that you're the lone wolf, but yeah, that's a new one for me. Mine was a lot simpler than that. I was taking anatomy and physiology, and I was like, I also want to take physics. I wanted to challenge myself my senior year of high school.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time I was playing first chair jazz trumpet.
Nice.
And we went over sound and the Doppler effect. And I was like, this shit's pretty cool. Like, I was like, yeah, I was interested. And I had a good teacher at the time, and we talked about physics, and I ultimately just decided to stay away from the health track. I was going to go into the health field, and I'm like, let's try physics. And I was into physics. I have a degree in it, but I did a dual degree and also went for engineering because I just loved mathematics and I
No,
don't know. I just could never make up my mind, but it's all cool. Yeah. So mine's more indecisive, but yeah,
that
it was just playing music that
that's
got me
amazing.
interested.
There's
Yeah.
so many connections between music and physics, and more than people realize. We'll get to that. We'll get to that.
Ooh,
But
okay. Sounds good. So I guess my next question for you is what advice do you have? I know you were talking about, selecting a PhD program. So what advice do you have for actually doing that? Because it's pretty darn hard from like my perspective. I'm having a tough time myself deciding if I want to do PhD or a master's or research or something that's more applied. I don't know. So what do you have?
I would say if you're passionate about research, about doing research, and if you're into if you're trying to become a professor, PhD is definitely what you're trying to do.
Mhm.
For a lot of industry jobs nowadays, I don't know how competitive it is, but with the direction the economy is going, it doesn't look that hot. And being in a PhD program, I always recommend that over a master program, at least from my perspective, is because um, it is so. First of all, you get paid most of the time because you're working as a research scientist. You don't have to. The tuition is usually covered, unlike in most master programs, and you get more research experience in a PhD program.
Mhm.
So if that information will help you, knowing what you are trying to do in the future, um, and plan accordingly, but also to select a certain PhD program to join, there are so many factors to consider. What you should not consider is how big of a name a school is,
Uh,
because it first of all, like I always recommend, go to where you would enjoy being in the next at least 5 or 6 years of your life. Like
yeah,
if you're a city girl, you probably don't want to go to in the middle of nowhere.
Boulder, Boulder, Colorado.
See, I don't want to name drop, but I'm just kidding.
Oh, Boulder's beautiful.
Um,
It is. It's great.
yeah,
I've been there. Yeah. Sorry.
yeah,
Go ahead.
no, you're good. Also, lab, really important. Choosing a lab that you want to work with, that is super important. Always look over the faculty list and a list of research that they do, because that will just give you, that's going to be the choosing range. Once you're accepted, you're trying to find a lab, right? And I always recommend if you see someone that you really want to work with, email them. Do
Yeah.
not be afraid to reach out. I reached out to probably more than 10 professors when I wasn't before I even submitted my application, and I got to talk to them, having email exchanges with them, and it's a great experience.
Mhm.
And select the program based on who you want to work with. And I think there is a website that out there that is also super useful. It's called Grad School Shopper. So if you're looking for a physics program, I think that's only for physics though. So it will give you all the options of the physics program that universities offer, their application admission
Okay.
rate. So, and how much does it cost? How many students do they admit? And all the other information.
Okay.
So there are a
You
lot
should send
of
that to
resources.
me.
Yeah, I will. I think it's called gradschoolshopper.com.
Okay. Grad school shopper.
Um,
I'll throw that
yeah,
in.
yeah,
I'll throw that in the description. So
yeah.
whoever's watching, listening, whatever, they can get their hands on it.
That helped me a lot. So choose
Mhm.
programs based on the general culture of the area, professors, their research area, what you want to do. Think about just think about, picture if you can be there in the next 5 or 6 years, because it's a very long time.
Yeah. I have one more thing to add. Oh,
and
what's up?
their stipend.
Yeah, that too, of course, because money talks, shit walks. But so one thing I did get a piece of advice from somebody, and they said, I'm not name dropping or anything or program wise, but one thing that you should look into is if you are emailing the professor that you want to work with and you like their research, make sure that they still have that grant money,
Yeah.
because as soon as they don't have the grant money, they're leaving, because that's how it's really competitive. Like PhD programs are super competitive and the money's not always there. So it ends up that like the professors will jump ship and go to another college. And you need to talk to them on like, what's your timeline? Like, how long are you going to be around? Is there money for us to be able to do this? And I've met people that have done that,
Yeah.
like that haven't done that, had that conversation, and they show up and then like a year in, the professor's piecing out and then they have to follow them or do something else.
I think what I wrote in my emails were like, are you looking for more graduate students in your lab? Like, what's the
Yes.
current lab culture? And also, if you can talk or get in contact with students from those schools, talk to them,
Oh,
because
yeah.
they will give you they can give you very different insights from what's available on the website, because the culture of each institution can vary a lot too.
Oh, for sure. And, if you wanted to, I know this sounds like a lot of homework to assign to somebody, but like I would say talk to more than one person, that because, not everybody experiences a program the same way. So just
Yeah.
getting as much information or much data that you can throw together about some place is going to make you, I guess, have a better informed decision. So definitely talk to as many people as you can, between the professor and then also the people who are, in the program itself, because they're going to give you the cookie cutter. Come here, like if you do like the website, come here, it's awesome. And, we'll pay you and this exists. And, sometimes you just need the real answer. But yeah.
Find
So
someone to spill the tea.
what's that?
Find someone to spill the tea.
Yes, spill the tea. So we talked about just the process of selection. What you should do to get the program that you really want. But how about the application process? Because I'm sure that's pretty intensive.
Yeah, it requires a lot of planning. So I think what I did was, usually for STEM PhD programs, the application due date is around like, I would say November to January, that kind of period.
Hmm.
And you should start planning the summer of that year. So like if you're applying around like November, you should start planning around like June, July, August-ish.
Hmm.
Our first step is to always just research the schools. I know there's a ton of like programs out there, but just generally get to know, like, have a list, make a list of all the schools you're applying to, their due date of application,
Yep.
application fee. Sometimes you can go get those fees waived too. So like don't be afraid to like ask for that when you apply to a certain program. And so that's the first step. And also, like I said before, like if you see someone that you're really interested, in working with, like reaching out to them, in summer, send them your CV, ask them if they're looking for more students. And then we come to the GRE stages. So register for your GREs. I don't know if they're still required, but a lot of programs now don't require GRE or GRE
Yeah.
physics because, there are a lot of issues, but we don't have to get into that. But there have been discussions about like whether or not physics GRE it really matters. But
Yeah.
if you're applying to physics programs, sometimes they would ask for your physics GRE. And don't be afraid. This is it really doesn't matter that much. I mean, at least my 2 cents. Like if I don't think if a program values your physics GRE score too much, you probably don't want to go there anyway.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of things at play. It
Yeah,
shouldn't just be heavy on a one test.
exactly, exactly. Especially like I don't think it's fair because when I
Nope.
took my physics GRE, the way my program was structured in undergrad, like I did not take E&M, like the upper division E&M. I was in the middle of classical mechanics. I was in the middle of I think stat mech as well. So I had to self teach a lot of stuff, and that is unfair compared to people who already have a master's taking it. So,
Yep.
but yeah, there are other things to talk about. But what really is important when it comes to application to PhD program is your personal statement to talk about your passion when it comes to
Mm,
research, why you want to go to a program. Um, this is a time where you're trying to convince them why you are an asset,
yeah.
why they should hire you. It's kind of like, hey, I'm valuable. I'm passionate about science. I can do science. Let me prove it to you. And and don't be afraid to name drop people to be like, I want to work with this person, this person, this person, so they can see you actually did your research into their schools. You're not just like shooting your shot at every every program.
I would say, yeah, name dropping people and talking about specifics is way more important than giving a generalized statement that you just have a love and passion for something. Like, of course you have a love and passion for something. You're applying for a freaking PhD in it. Like, why else would you be here? Like, give me some names. Give me some things that you want to work on, stuff that you want to achieve. Give me your goals.
Yeah.
Do you want to be the next such and such theoretical physicist of blah application? That's what I want to hear. I don't want to hear that you love physics. You like I just adore it. It's like
No shit, you adore
yeah,
it.
yeah, no shit. And Joe Schmo can adore physics as well whenever you explain something to him. Like it's
Yeah.
yeah, we get it.
And if
Um,
you have like research experience, talk about that because that's what grad schools are looking for, right? They're trying to hire you as a research scientist. So if you
yeah,
have your research experience, talk about them. And if you have the opportunity, I know not everyone has the opportunity to go to conferences, but if you go to conferences as an undergrad, like talk to professors.
yeah,
Maybe they're hiring someone.
yeah.
Like make those connections, and just because you're applying to grad schools, it doesn't mean you need to stop making connections or not to make connections. In fact, like I met my current PI at a conference when I was in undergrad. So utilize all of your resources, utilize all of your opportunities, and talk about those on your personal statement. That will help you a lot.
Yeah, keeping it professional and networking. Um, but like, whenever you go to the conferences, like obviously you're there to network, but then also just try to be yourself. Like they know like what your goal is, but like, they also, if you want to work with them in the future, like they want to know who you are as well, not just what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
So I would say maybe 80-20. Like, it's a professional process, obviously, like you are going to work, but like, try to be yourself as well, and don't be a damn hypocrite.
That's yeah. Okay, but like I did not I when I first met my advisor, PI right now, at a conference, I did not cuss at all. I was like trying to be professional. And then
Okay, yeah.
I got admitted to the program. I'm like, okay, time to unleash the real Michelle.
Unleash the beast.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you definitely want to keep it professional and be yourself. Like you can't just be a machine, right? You want a program to get to know you. You want to make an impression that is memorable and is also good. So it's
100%. Yeah, so we're talking about applications, right? So embedded in applications is also the requirements, right? You need to make sure that you're meeting the needs of the program.
yeah.
So what kind of requirements would an applicant be looking at?
as in to apply for programs?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. So we talked about like the
right,
GRE
yeah,
that
right,
like.
the GRE, the
Mhm,
GRE. Um, so GRE can be a huge factor. I mean, like some schools have a minimum GRE you're trying to meet, but sometimes it's like not a hard thing.
yeah.
Your personal statements, as
Yes.
mentioned, I always think that if you have the more research experience you have, the better candidate you are. If you
Mhm,
have published papers, that will help a lot. I think, yeah, I had 2 papers applying, first author applying to grad school. Conference experience is always good. Basically, whatever that makes your CV, the longer, the better.
yeah.
TA experience are often super important too.
Mhm,
Depends on, your school's requirement. If your school has a TA requirement as a grad student, if you already have previous TA experience, that will help you a lot. GPA, I find it is a moderate kind of factor. Like, obviously, it can be like 1, but like,
it's okay. I mean, GPA doesn't mean everything, you know?
no.
Um,
And yeah, and sometimes, like, if you talk about if there's like 1 semester that, you are not doing well, that's totally fine. And you
yeah,
can talk about that in your application, be like, hey, I was like, battling with, like, for example, mental health.
yeah,
And, I'm working on it and I've learned lessons and stuff. Like, those are your story to tell. Like, and your personal experience just makes you unique, and
yes.
stick with them. And one tip I really want to, like, give to people who are looking into applying to physical or grad schools in general is that if a school rejects you, it is not an invalidation to you as a person or a scholar at all.
Mhm, it's their
Right?
loss.
There are so many reasons that they might reject you. They might run out of fundings for that year. They might, just the professor looking to work with, they're not looking for any students.
Mhm,
It's not a rejection of your character at all. So don't take it personally. And I know it's hard because, I got rejected by so many programs. Got accepted to a few, but a lot of rejections too. And it's okay. At the end of the day, you know, it is okay.
I agree. Yeah. On a less um, personal note, one thing that I do also want to stress is letters of recommendation.
Oh, that's
Yeah. No, you're good. You're good. You're good. I know letters; those are important. You know,
yeah.
getting make sure you ask the right professors. I mean, obviously, if you're applying, you definitely have had some professors that have been there for you and have inspired you to do things and can maybe even choose the path that you're on. So like ask the professors that have a personal connection to you. Don't just ask the head of the department because they're the head of the department, because a lot
Yeah.
of their stuff doesn't like they're not going to say meaningful things like to the level that you would expect.
Yeah, I mean, like, it also, so I think when it comes to usually you have 3 professors, like 3 choices for a letter of recommendations.
Mm.
So you can work with that however you want. But you're totally right. You're totally right. You have to, choose someone who's at least have some personal understanding to you. So, for example, your PI in undergrad or something like that. But
Mm.
also, there's if you want to go into a certain direction, for example, if you're dead set on going to condensed matter physics, for example, and
Mhm.
if you have someone in your department that specializes in that area,
Yeah.
that could help too. Because, whoever you're applying it to, when the committee received the letter, sometimes they review the applications by certain, like, areas of physics. They might
Mhm.
recognize the name.
That's yeah. Yeah. I take back my QT statement. Do what's best for you, man. If you
Yeah.
want to go with one personal and 2 that are focused, go for it. It's your application. But definitely big emphasis on the letters of recommendation for sure.
They're super important. Sorry, I forgot about that. It's been like 2.
Ooh, Oh, you could even do some base level research and just, where you're applying to, look at the like, how do I want to say this? Try to draw connections. Use networking. If someone knows your professor and they're at the college of which you're trying to go to,
Mhm.
connect those dots. Maybe you don't know that professor too well, but you can definitely get to know them in a short period of time. Be like, I want to go here, and then you can have a bonding thing with,
Yeah.
yeah,
No, that's a great advice. And
yeah.
I actually did that. I don't wanna like disappoint people. It didn't work.
Oh,
Well, but also it might be because it was Harvard. So take that with a grain of salt. Like my my undergrad PI, he went to Harvard. And I was like, "Ooh, your lab sounds cool." So like, he was on all the stuff that I applied to Harvard, and I name drop
mhm.
his PI. I was like, "I want to work with." Okay, I should probably not name drop anyone here. With blank rejection.
Damn. Sorry to hear that.
Yeah,
Um,
it was really sad.
it's Harvard. You shot your shot, and hey, it happens.
We'll
Um,
see for postdoc though.
you got this. Keep trying. They
Man,
might see that second application and be like, all right,
it would
I
be a
see you.
third because I applied there for undergrad too and didn't get it.
Okay, so third time is the charm. It's they see that you're dedicated. Just to finish out this segment, I wanted to talk to you about your program. Maybe you can give a little bit about your story, or just about the program that you're in right now. I know we did get to talk about what you're doing, but if you wanted to elaborate more on the program itself.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. So yeah, I go to Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia, and right now, as you probably already gathered, I'm getting my PhD in physics, and I do research in soft condensed matter physics or soft matter physics experiments. For my program, you have a certain amount of classes that you have to take. Usually, you take those the first 2 years. So very basic, like classical, um, E&M, stat mech, and quantum, the fun stuff. And plus, you have to take some electives as well. So for me, I did continuum mechanics and soft matter because I do research in that area, and
Mhm.
mathematical. That's what I'm taking next semester. And you have to TA for 3 semesters. So for me, I did 3 semesters of intro labs to undergrads.
Nice.
I loved teaching. Like it was super fun. Like I still keep in contact with some of my students, and I enjoy teaching just because it's so rewarding. And you know, I've been there, I've struggled, and I think a lot of students when they struggle, especially with physics, it's such like an intimidating subject, and people are scared. I was scared, and I thought, a lot of students need someone to be like, hey, it's okay to struggle. Like I've been there too. It's totally okay. Um, and yeah, besides teaching classes, you also have to pass a qualifier. So that's a
Um,
qualification exam at the end of your second year of grad school. So
mm,
I did that this April. But basically, you're trying to come up with an experiment that has never done before and write a grant proposal about it. That
mm,
is like I wrote mine like 48 pages long, and you have to defend it in front of a committee of 4 professors for like total about like within 2 hours. They basically just ask you questions. You were supposed to give like a presentation that's like 40-30 minute long, and they ask you like a bunch of questions, like scientific ones. And yeah, it was really scary.
sounds
But
like fun.
we did it. It was not bad. It was like, you know, just a short, I think it's like a shorter version of dissertation, except you haven't done experiments yet.
Mm.
And I actually prefer it over like qualifiers that are written tests.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because for me, like, I think research skills are super important, and process like this require you to go beyond yourself to actually be a scientific researcher.
Yeah.
You're not get fed on like a project by your PI. You actually have to read all those papers, develop something by yourself, come up with something by yourself. So,
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
Even just the communication aspect of that, because one thing that
yeah,
I find, and maybe this is rude to say, I don't know, but like PhDs aren't the best at communicating sometimes. So a
yeah,
test of communication is always good. Can you communicate what you're actually trying to do, and putting it maybe, I don't know. So I'm kind of curious. Were they asking for you to give questions that were, or answers that were extremely technical, or were they looking for questions that were, okay, I'm going to pretend like I'm a 6-year-old and you're going to give me an answer that I can understand? Did they do like any of that, or was it just all technical?
yeah. I don't think technical is like a right fitting word for that per se,
Mhm.
because in my committee, I had people I had theory people, I had, professors from other areas, and
Oh,
they come from different perspectives. So the questions
uh,
asked can be technical, but there were like a mix of, theoretical as well. It can be just like, general, not like, oh, explain me this as if like I was 6-year old kind of sense. But it comes in different shapes or forms. Even questions as how would you know this would work, or what's the expected results for that,
cool.
or like what happens if, oh, if this like what would you do if this happens, or stuff like that too.
I
So
got you.
that's like a main thing
Hmm.
when it comes to defending your qualifier. But yeah, so in my program, qualifier is like a huge thing. And yeah, basically after that I just do research. I think that's it. That's like pretty much it, I think.
You say it's pretty much it, but it like encompasses most of your time. Yeah. That's a lot. Okay. Just so the person listening or watching knows, like, if you're not in a PhD program, it's a full-time job, like, and some. So I couldn't imagine
Right.
the time that you would put in just to get ready to be not in a roast session, but almost like kind of in a roast session, but like just even the prep to get that stuff ready, and then have to deal with the questioning and explaining to people that aren't familiar with your work. It's a lot.
Yeah, definitely. It
Yeah,
was time consuming, but it's over. So now we get to do all the cool scientific stuff. Yay!
that's what's up. So we talked about a lot, like in terms of the PhD program. Hopefully that really helps out the whoever's tuning into this. But we're gonna take a real quick break, and then when we come back, we're gonna talk about something way different. We're gonna talk about work life balance and Michelle's music. So stick around. All right, so we're back for segment 3. We're not talking about science unless we really, really want to, but we're going to talk about work-life balance, which is really important in science, because people who do science are also people, right? People's in the sentence there. So we definitely have to think about work-life balance. For me personally, like my work-life balance, like what I do is I try to get out in nature, because work is stressful. Studying is stressful. It's you know you do have love and passion for these things, but like it doesn't have to be your entire life, right? I don't know anybody that's in the sciences that just do science like 24/7 inside their apartments with like no lights on, and they're just sitting in front of their computer and typing out code. But like what I do, personally is just get outside and enjoy life in nature, and it's just peaceful, very peaceful. Whenever there's not human trash everywhere, but that's what I do. I just cooking. I love to cook. I've found myself reading a lot more. I never used to read. Now I read a lot. Um, just just things that kind of calm the mind a little bit, you know. So that's my work-life balance. Michelle, what do you do? I know music is a big thing in your life. So maybe do you want to talk about that and explain your
Yeah,
music career?
sure. I love to. But yeah, nature, great point. Everybody needs to go outside. If you're depressed, go outside. If you're hungry, go. I don't know. Okay, maybe not when you're hungry. But yeah, go outside. But yes, back to music and work-life balance. I'm a singer-songwriter, so when I'm not doing physics, I do a lot of music. I do a lot of songwriting, um, and work on my songs, playing some gigs here and there, live music gigs. But yeah, it's my passion. It's been like songwriting has been my passion since I wrote my first song when I was 8. So around ever since then, it's been a long time. It's kind of like journaling to me,
Mm.
because when I used to write diaries, but then I'm like, this is not enough. I need something that where I can scream it out, you know. So songwriting takes the perfect form. And um since I don't know, I have I have had a crush on a lot of boys, and surprisingly none of them like me back. So that inspired a lot of songs. I write a lot of breakup songs because I've averaged like one breakup per year at this point in the past 5 years. um, that sounds super sad, but the music that I get from out of it, like honestly, it's pretty rewarding.
I
Um,
like that. I like that.
yeah, it's like definitely physics has helped me a lot when it comes to recording, like you know, placement of instruments when it comes to recording.
Mhm.
Um, acoustics, that's a thing. But yeah, work-life balance, I think it's super important in general. Like doesn't matter what you know what you like to do, as long as you still can have fun
Mhm.
while being productive. That's what matters. You want to have fun.
Right. What type of music do you create? I know you said that you like to create music after breakups, but do you dabble in different in different structures? Like,
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I mainly write like singer-songwriter stuff, so acoustic stuff. I've done opera before when I was in college, but not right now at the moment.
oh, it's
Yeah,
impressive.
thank you. It's just really fun, but it's not for me.
In
Um,
opera, what do you regard it as, like in terms of your vocalization?
oh yeah, I was a mezzo soprano.
Okay. Do you mind explaining that really quick?
Yeah, so there's alto, which is like I don't remember the exact range, but alto is like kind of lower-ish.
Yeah.
And then there's soprano. Mezzo is kind of like between that
Mhm.
range.
Gotcha.
So Adele, she's a mezzo soprano.
Ah, yes,
Yeah.
good reference. That really helps. That really helps.
But yeah, it's super fun because I really enjoy learning like acting side of
Mhm.
it, and a lot of opera pieces that I learned were in Italian, so I got to learn that too. That was super fun.
Ooh,
Yeah.
nice.
So
So,
yeah.
what tell us, like, what's the biggest gig you've done so far? I'm curious.
So live music wise, I don't play as much as before. I actually just played a gig last week. I got
Nice.
invited to play this at this block party, but I mainly do production and just like releasing music online on Spotify and different platforms. That's what I do major like mainly. I think
Mhm.
one of my songs it has like 12K streams, which is like I'm really proud of.
Heck yeah.
Uh, because like it's like one of my favorite songs, and um, uh, I'm proud of. Anyway, but yeah, I can't think of like all the other gigs at the moment because they were all like pre-COVID, and it's like a blur. I did like when I was in high school, I had like a concert. I was headlining a concert like locally in San Diego.
Nice.
That was super far away. That was like probably 6 or whatever years ago.
Mm.
7 years ago. I don't remember. A long time ago.
So
So
curious.
different things. Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. I'm just curious. So like if somebody wanted to go listen to your music, can somebody just look up Michelle Wang
Yeah,
on Spotify? Okay.
yeah,
I didn't know if
that's
you operated differently, like if you had like a solo name that was different from your
my,
own name.
yeah.
Okay.
I also post like on my TikTok account. I also post like cover or original from time to time for fun, besides my usual scientific communication, grad school content.
Hmm.
So yeah, like I'm this summer I'm releasing 2 more songs because breakups, yay, it happens.
Michelle is Taylor Swift 2.0. Just saying.
100% version of her. But yeah, it's it's exciting. Let's put it this way. I don't want to reveal too much. Like I'm gonna do some previews and stuff on my TikTok account, but it's super exciting because I got to work with some really amazing producers. One of the producers I worked with, he actually worked on Ariana Grande's Sweetener album,
Ooh.
and he has like 2
Ooh.
married. So that was super exciting. Um,
Wow.
yeah, and it's a privilege to record with him, and yeah. So
That's
stay tuned.
that's awesome. Yeah, I'll definitely be looking forward to that. And I'll try to share it on, I know my social media stuff isn't that sexy yet, but I'll definitely
Oh,
share
it
it.
is. Don't worry.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, so I'm kind of curious, and of course, this is a scientific question. So, whenever you're playing music, do you ever just sit back and think like, I'm just sending vibrations out there,
Yeah,
and people are just intaking these vibrations, and they're reacting to it chemically in different ways. Like they're loving it, they're hating it, they're entranced by it. Like they just react to it in different ways. Do you ever just sit back and think like, it's so weird that like vibrations in air, sound is making people feel like that. Isn't
yeah.
that strange?
Okay, so I don't think in terms of vibrations, because I was like, whenever I think about vibrations, I think about the other side of TikTok, and it rubs me sometimes in the wrong way.
Oh, like the ASMR shit that you
No,
hear?
no, the spiritual people were
Oh, oh,
like,
oh, oh,
oh,
oh.
you're sending a different vibration. And I was like, what is vibrating, man? No, but I think I do think it's really fascinating. Like I'm carrying out like sound waves
Yeah.
and through air,
Hmm.
people are you're right, people are reacting to it like chemically. Stuff happened in their brain, they're processing it, and that is what really just makes me feel rewarding as an artist, because if I could make people feel a certain way, produce serotonin, or cry with me. um I try not to cry in my gigs. I haven't, which is nice, but it is huge because music is powerful.
Yeah.
And I'm sure one of the biggest motivation for me to share my music to the world, or with the world, is that people are going through similar experiences with me all the time.
Yeah.
And for people who are going through the same thing, it's nice for them to know, at least, I mean, it would be nice for me to know as well, like, someone else is going through the same thing, and finding out music that speak to them, that they can relate to, that they find therapeutic. And that does give me like a sense of purpose with my own music.
Yeah, definitely. And the correlation of, yeah, you have you're in your PhD program for physics, but you also experience the same everyday life stuff as others, and you're just in your downtime, you're communicating that to other people to like to make a bridge, which is pretty cool, because you're a person, I'm an engineer, I'm a person, there's, the salesman would have the same experience, the waitress, etc. Everybody experiences that, and it's cool that, uh, you choose to do that in your downtime. It's good stuff.
Yeah, I really enjoy it. It's always nice to, to know that we're all, at the end of the day, we're all human. We have shared experiences, we have shared feelings, that we can all relate to.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So, just to jump back really quick, your number one song that you like, what is it? Just to shout it out so people can go listen to it.
Yeah, so the name of it is Out of Tears.
Out of
And
Tears.
I wrote it 4 years ago. It was inspired by in a relationship where I felt I was objectified, because unfortunately I found out that I was, dating this guy who had Asian fetish.
Oh,
So, and I just felt like, he did not like me for who I am. He liked me because he just saw the Asianness, my ethnicity,
mm,
instead of seeing me as a person.
yeah.
And but I genuinely just liked him for, for who he was. So it was very hurtful. So I wrote this song Out of Tears, because like I was crying a lot. I was like, I'm out of tears.
That's adorable. Do you ever like throw in science into your music? Do you ever just like name drop some things
Yeah.
for fun?
Yeah,
Nice.
I did. I wrote a song, and I talk about brownie emotions. Like, we're
Of course.
drifting apart like brownie emotions.
Of course. Of course. You wouldn't be a physicist if you didn't include something like that in your songs. So,
Yeah, that's
kudos.
I thought about, like, when I was, studying for a GRE, I was thinking maybe I can write a song about all the topics, and then I was like, no, who's gonna listen to it? Like, who's gonna listen to it?
Two physicists that are also studying for the GRE.
That's
Just
very sad.
well, I mean, I don't know if that would sell. That would be tough. Controversy sells, and just relations, like, people, person to person, human relations sell pretty well. Um, there are people that do rap like concepts in physics or concepts in like neuroscience and stuff, which is pretty sick.
Cool.
But, you know, I'm a nerd, so I don't know if like the common person would be interested in that.
I mean, maybe if you do like cool references, like ones here and there, like, that got people to look it up. Like, oh, what does this mean? Like, what does this reference mean? And they look up like brownie emotion. They're like, oh my god, that's so cool. Like that will be fun. And
Yeah.
then you ease them into physics at
Hmm.
first, get them used to it, and then eventually you drop a song that is just all physics, and they're like, oh my god, that is so cool. I don't know, maybe that's not how the general public react.
Michelle's just trying to create a physics songwriting cult, is what she's saying. She's trying to manipulate you to listening to her physics.
That's my master plan all along.
I'm down with that. I mean, it could be way worse. Could be trying to manipulate them to drink some bad Kool-Aid.
That is dark.
It's true. That stuff has happened in the past.
That is.
Yeah. At least you're manipulating them to try to be smarter and enjoy reality around them. I guess I want to close out now before we get, and just say, thanks for being on the show. This was awesome. Just to talk about some really good core things. Bring it into a human level in the last segment and a half, but talking about what soft matter is, just so people kind of understand it. Like it's I guess an emerging, or more, it's gaining traction, I guess, is probably a good way in the sciences, in research and application. Also talking about the PhD track, how you can look into the application process, what you should be looking for, the requirements that's necessary, et cetera, and then also shouting out your music, which is fun. So I appreciate you being on the podcast, talking about all these cool things. It was a pleasure having you on.
Thank you for having me here. I really enjoyed talking to you.
That is all for this episode of Everything STEAM. Now I'd like to give a big shout out to Michelle for sharing her knowledge, experience, and music with us. I recommend you follow her on TikTok and Instagram at Michelle Wang, but most importantly, check out her music on Spotify. Just give Michelle Wang a search and tune in. I would also love to mention my amazing team for their collective efforts to make the show happen. This podcast was edited by Mike Gabriel, marketed by Courtney Page, QC by Panyapit Eriksit, and our episode art was created by Gabrielle Edmiston. After the episode, please give our podcast a rating and review on whatever platform you get your podcasts on. We're always looking for some feedback, and the rating would greatly help us out in the fight against the algorithms. Again, I really encourage you to sign up for our bi-weekly newsletter. The Monday before each episode, you get a preview of that episode and a sneak peek of what the next episode will be. And as a bonus, we'll include some information that we missed during the discussion. But most importantly, please reply to our newsletter with a question for the upcoming show. We will take 1 or 2 questions and answer them during the recording, and if you're lucky enough, we'll give you a name drop. Lastly, be sure to check us out on all the socials for podcast news, upcoming episodes, and just fun STEAM content. Just search Everything STEAM on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and Reddit to join in on the fun. Once again, thank you for listening to Everything STEAM. I'm your host, Sam Stanford, and as always, stay curious.